precious. You all cuddled and warm in bed for me? Good. It's been a while, hasn't it? I always look forward to this time of night, tonight of all nights, when I get to share with you a bedtime story. It's just me, you, and one of my favorite books. Remember, we're reading King Solomon's Mines by H. Rider Haggard. Now, I want you to get comfortable. You've been doing okay, haven't you? You know that I just want the best for you, right? Good. Now, where were we? Here we go. Then I bought a beautiful team of 20 Zulu oxen, which I had kept my eye on for a year or two. 16 oxen is the usual number for a team, but I took 4 extra to allow for casualties. These Zulu cattle are small and light, not more than half the size of the Afrikaner oxen, which are generally used for transport purposes. But they will live where the Afrikaner would starve, and with a moderate load can make 5 miles a day better going, being quicker and not so liable to becoming footsore. What is more, this lot were thoroughly salted. That is, they had worked all over South Africa, and so had become proof, comparatively speaking, against red water, which so frequently destroys whole teams of oxen when they get on to the strange veld, or grass country. As for lung-sick, which is a dreadful form of pneumonia, very prevalent in this country, they had all been inoculated against it. This is done by cutting a slit in the tail of an ox and binding it in a piece of the diseased lung of an animal which has died of the sickness. The result is that the ox sickens, takes the disease in a mild form, which causes its tail to drop off, as a rule about a foot from the root, and becomes proof against future attacks. It seems cruel to rob the animal of its tail, especially in a country where there are so many flies, but it is better to sacrifice the tail and keep the ox than to lose both the tail and ox, for a tail without an ox is not much good, except to dust with. Still, it does look odd to trek behind 20 stumps, where there ought to be tails. It seems though as nature made a trifling mistake, and stuck the stern ornaments of a lot of prize bulldogs onto the rumps of oxen. Next came the question of provisioning and medicines, one of which is required careful consideration, for what we had to do was to avoid lumbering the wagon, and yet to take everything absolutely necessary. Fortunately, it turned out that Good is a bit of a doctor, having at some point in his previous career managed to pass through a course of medical and surgical instruction, which he has more or less kept up with. He is not, of course, qualified, but he knows more about it than many a man who can write an M.D. after his name, and as we came out afterwards. And he had a splendid travelling medicine chest, and a set of instruments. Whilst we were at Durban, he cut off a Kafir's big toe in a way which it was pleasure to see. But he was quite nonplussed when the Kaffir, who had sat stolidly watching the operation, asked him to put on another, saying that a white one would do in a pinch. There remained, these questions were satisfactorily settled, two and further important points for consideration, namely that of arms and that of servants. As to the arms, I cannot do better than to put down a list of which we had finally decided on from amongst the ample store that Sir Henry had brought with him from England, and those of which I owned. I copy it from my pocket-book, which I made an entry at that time. 3 heavy, breech-loading double elephant guns, weighing about 15 pounds each, to carry a charge of 11 drachms of black powder. 2 of these were by a well-known London firm, most excellent maker, but I do not know by whom mine, which is not so highly finished, was made. I have used it on several trips and shot many a good elephant with it, and it has always proved a superior weapon, thoroughly to be relied on. 3 double 500 expresses constructed to stand a charge of 6 drachms, sweet weapons, and admirable for medium-sized games such as eland or sable antelope, or for men, especially in open country with the semi-hollow bullet. 1 double number 12 central fire keeper's shotgun, full choke, both barrels. This gun proved to be of the greatest service to us afterwards in shooting game for the pot. 3 Winchester repeating rifles, not carbines, spare guns. 3 single-action Colt revolvers with the heavier or American pattern of cartridge. And this was our total armament. And doubtless the reader will observe that these weapons of each class were of the same make and caliber, so that the cartridges were interchangeable. A very important point. I make no apology for detailing it at length, as every experienced hunter will know how vital a proper supply of guns and ammunition to the success of an expedition. Now, as to the men that were to go with us, after much consultation, we decided that their number should be limited to 5, namely, a driver, a leader, and 3 servants. The driver and leader I found without much difficulty. 2 Zulus, named respectively Goza and Tom. But to get the servants proved a much more difficult matter. It was the necessity that they should be thoroughly trustworthy and brave men, as in a business of this sort our lives might depend entirely upon their conduct. At last I secured 2. 1, a Hottentot, named Ventvogel, or Windbird, and 1, a little Zulu named Kiva, who had the merit of speaking English perfectly. Ventvogel I had known before. He was one of the perfect spoorers, that is, game trackers, I had ever had to do with, and tough as a whipcord. He never seemed to tire, but he had one failing, so common with his race, drink. Put him in hand reach of a bottle of gin, and you could not trust him. However, as we were going beyond the region of grog shops, this little weakness of his did not seem so much to matter. Having secured these 2, I looked in vain for a third to suit my purpose. So we determined to set off without one, trusting to luck to find a suitable man on our way up the country. But, as it happened, on the evening before the day we had fixed for our departure, the Zulu Kiva had informed me that a Kafar was waiting to see me. Accordingly, when he had been done dinner, for we were all at the table at the time, I told Kiva to bring him in. Presently, a tall, handsome-looking man, somewhere about 30 years of age, and very light-colored for a Zulu, entered, and lifted his knobstick by the way of a salute, squatted himself down in the corner, on his haunches, and sat silent. I did not take any notice of him for a while, for it is a great mistake to do so. If you are to rush into conversation at once, a Zulu is apt to think that you are a person of little dignity or consequence. I observed, however, that he was a keshla, or ringed man. That is, he wore on his head the black ring, which is made from a species of gum polished with fat and worked up into the hair, which is usually assumed by Zulus on attaining a certain age or dignity, which also struck me that his face was so familiar to me. Well, I said at last, what is your name? Umbopa, answered the man in a slow, deep voice. I have seen your face before. Yes. The Inkusi, the chief, my father, saw my face at the place of the little hand, that is, Isandawalana, on the day before the battle. Then I remembered. I was one of the Lord Chelmsford guides in that unlucky Zulu war, and had the good fortune to leave the camp in charge of some wagons on the day before the battle. While I was waiting for the cattle to be inspanned, I fell into conversation with this man, who held some small command amongst the native auxiliaries, and he had expressed to me his doubts as to the safety of the camp. At the time, I told him to hold his tongue and to leave such matters to wiser heads. But afterwards, I had thought of his words. I remember, I said. What is it that you want? It is this Makumazam. That is my Kafir name. It means the man who gets up in the middle of the night, or, in vulgar English, he who keeps his eyes open. I hear that you go on a great expedition far into the north with the white chiefs from over the water. Is that a true word? It is. I hear that you go even to the Lankaga River and a moon's journey beyond the Mackinac country. Is this also Mukanabazan? Why do you ask whither we go? What is it to you? I answered suspiciously, for the objects of our journey had been kept a dead secret. It is this, O white men, that if indeed you travel so far as I would travel with you. There's a certain assumption of dignity in the man's tone of speech, and especially in his use of the words, O white men, instead of O Echinosus, or chiefs, which struck me. You forget yourself a little, I said. Your words run out unawares. That is not the way to speak. What is your name, and where is your kraal? Tell us that we may know with whom we have to deal. My name is Mbopa. I am of the Zulu people, yet not of them. The house of my tribe is in the far north. It was left long behind when the Zulus came down here 1,000 years ago, long before Chaka reigned Zululand. I have no kraal. I have wandered for many a year. I came from the north as a child to Zululand. I was Kitawe's man in the Nakamabwe region, serving there under the great captain, Laki of the Axe, who taught me hands to fight. Afterwards, I ran away from Zululand and came to Natal because I wanted to see the white man's ways. Next, I fought against Kitawaya in the war. Since then, I have been working in Natal. Now I'm a little tired and would like to go north again. Here is not my place. I want no money, but I am a brave man, and am worth much in my place of meat. And I have spoken. Look at you, precious. I'm already asleep. Oh, I hope you enjoyed that little part of the story. I definitely had some issues reading it, as I'm sure it'll cause you some great needed amusement. You look so peaceful, lying there asleep like that. Now, get going. Morpheus is waiting for you. Stay safe amongst the river Lethe. Sweet dreams, precious.